Friday after Thanksgiving. Should be a holiday.
Turkey hangover day.
Not official.
No, but it kind of feels like one, doesn't it?
It really does.
I'm glad you guys are home or joining us.
The president says that if Mexico can't control its side of the border, he may close it, all of it. He also says he's giving troops the okay to use lethal force against migrants, quote, if they have to.
Mexico cannot believe how tough these people are. The mayor of Tijuana and so many others had said, boy, these are tough people. They start fighting right away. They're tough people. You have many criminals in that caravan. If we find that it gets to a level where we are going to lose control or where people are going to start getting hurt, we will close entry into the country for a period of time until we can get it under control.
That was the president yesterday. This morning we have Kevin Cork live in West Palm Beach, Florida. Kevin?
Good to be with you, my friend. And you're right, the president is bound and determined to stop this caravan from making its way to the U.S. border and over into this country. But right now he's actually asking Congress to do something, Rick, and I think that really is what they're hoping that the congressional lawmakers will do on Capitol Hill. Again, let me take you to Twitter. And again, the president is imploring them to help him out so that he doesn't have to continue to escalate the fight. He says Republicans and Democrats must come together, finally, with a major border security package, which will include funding for the wall. After 40 years of talk, it's finally time for action. Fix the border for once and for all now. The president, in fact, ratcheted up the intensity of this debate yesterday, saying, yes, he would authorize the use of lethal force if necessary to stop the caravan. In fact, he confirmed that he's already done that. That caravan, by the way, numbers in the thousands.
If they have to, they're going to use lethal force. I've given the okay. Yeah, if they have to, I hope they don't have to. But, you know, you're dealing with a minimum of 500 serious criminals. So I'm not going to let the military be taken advantage of. I have no choice.
Another level up, Rick, the president warning he would shutter the whole border if needed to protect the safety and sovereignty of America. And by the way, we saw an example of that. You may remember back on Monday over at the port of entry over at San Ysidro. That was shut down for a few hours, causing major headaches for travelers in that area. Now, the White House has said repeatedly they want legal and, frankly, merit-based immigration in this country because we do need the labor. But they're also very clear to say that it has to be merit-based. It can't just be you show up at our border, ask for asylum, when really what you're asking for is a chance to work. Now, critics will argue that we shouldn't have a policy play out like this because we're, frankly, hurting the world's poor. But as a White House official told me this morning, what about the American poor? We have an obligation to them first. Rick?
And we'll have more on this later this hour. Kevin Cork near the Winter White House in West Palm Beach. Thanks very much. Another Fox News alert. Former FBI Director James Comey and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch hit with subpoenas from the House Judiciary Committee demanding closed-door depositions on their decisions during the 2016 election regarding Hillary Clinton's emails and alleged Russian ties to the Trump campaign. Let's bring in Hugo Gordon, editorial director for the Washington Examiner. Good morning, Hugo.
Good morning.
The committee says this is about decisions made and not made by the DOJ during the 2016 election, choosing to chase allegations against President Trump and allege Russia ties, but not Hillary's use of a private email server and her deletion of tens of thousands of emails. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it is fair. There's a lot of suspicion that the origins of the investigation into collusion between, or alleged collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia involved at least questionable attitudes and biases. And it's also the case that no one believes that Loretta Lynch and President Clinton, former President Clinton, met in secret in an airplane during the height of the campaign just to discuss their grandchildren, exchanged pleasantries. This was immediately before James Comey came out and said that Hillary Clinton would not be prosecuted.
Right.
So there's a lot of suspicion, and Republicans have every right to look into it.
But will this amount to anything?
That's a much better, much more pointed question and the right one, Rick.
Thanks.
I think, what I mean by that is it's absolutely appropriate to interview these people, to subpoena these people, to try and get what they have. But it's not going to amount to anything. It's going to be very easy for both of these people to testify, or in the case of James Comey, to refuse to testify. He's already said he's going to fight the subpoena. It's only a matter of weeks before the the Democrats take over these committees, and I think that they're going to let these matters slide. So I don't think that this is actually going to achieve anything for the Republicans, except perhaps to point up these issues and show that these are issues that then get ignored by the Democrats.
Well, James Comey says that he's happy to sit in the light and answer all the questions, but he doesn't want to do it behind closed doors. He tweeted this yesterday. Happy Thanksgiving. Got a subpoena from House Republicans. I'm still happy to sit in the light and answer all questions, but I will resist a closed door thing because I've seen enough of their selective leaking and distortion. Let's have a hearing and invite everyone to see.
Yeah, he's says that he wants an open hearing. He's obviously testified that way before, and he and his lawyer say that the reason they don't want closed doors hearings is that there's going to be leaks. The truth is that both sides have been leaking the information that they like to get out there. I really think that, you know, there is classified information relating to these investigations, and so obviously behind closed doors is the right way to ask questions about some of those things. Well, to suggest that this is all about transparency is I think, disingenuous on Comey's part.
We've seen that James Comey can handle the spotlight. I mean, he seems capable of answering and deflecting when necessary. What about Loretta Lynch?
That's a really interesting one. I think Loretta Lynch would be much less comfortable doing this. James Comey seems to relish being in the limelight when he can do a bit of grandstanding. Obviously, you know, he sold a book. While he was refusing to testify up on Capitol Hill, right, he was out in front of the cameras all over the place, you know, selling his book. So he likes that limelight. I think Loretta Lynch is a much more private person. And there's something she also knows that the meeting that she had with President Clinton during the height of the election campaign and the height of the Hillary Clinton email investigation was a misstep, a very bad misstep, and, you know, raises legitimate questions about the probity. We
want to get to Democratic Congressman Jim Himes' take on this. We talked to him last hour, and he basically seemed to think this was much ado about nothing. Here's what he said.
Every time these individuals have the opportunity to speak in public, the truth comes out, and truth is not the friend of those Republicans like Devin Nunes and Bob Goodlatte, who are just desperate to get back to the topic of Hillary Clinton and her emails. This has been aired 6 times till Sunday, and as I say, bring it on. Let's air it some more.
What do you think, Hugo?
The Democrats want to suggest that the Republican oversight has been entirely biased. You know, I know people who talk to me who, for example, entirely defend Robert Mueller, call him a very upstanding guy, and yet at the same time say that what Hillary Clinton did was evidently wrong and there were clear reasons for prosecution. So it's not black, it's not white. There's truth on both sides of this.
We're going to leave it there. Hugo Gordon with the Washington Examiner, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And we'll have more reaction from House members coming up throughout the morning. Democrat Matt Cartwright will join us at the bottom of the hour, and we'll hear from Republican Sean Duffy at 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time.
And another Fox News alert for you on the fallout over the death of columnist Jamal Khashoggi. President Trump appearing to question the CIA's reported assessment that it's confident the Saudi crown prince was behind the Saudi dissident's murder.
I hate the crime. I hate what's done. I hate the cover-up. And I will tell you this, the Crown Prince hates it more than I do. And they have vehemently denied it. The CIA points it both ways.
Benjamin Hall is live in London with the very latest. Hi, Benjamin.
Yeah, hi, Julie. You know, there's a real sense now that President Trump wants to move on from this issue and focus on bigger picture policy issues in the Middle East. And he said that in no uncertain terms yesterday when he said that national security and the economy are the two things which matter to him most. Saudi Arabia is also very keen to move on from this. And earlier we saw Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman taking his first trip abroad since Khashoggi's murder, starting a tour of Middle Eastern allies. It is a sign that he has the full support of King Salman and that he remains the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. He's going to round off his trip at the end of the month at the G20 summit in Argentina, where he's going to meet both President Trump and Turkish President Erdogan. But the issue is by no means over. There were angry words from Turkey earlier as their foreign minister criticised President Trump, saying he appears to want to turn a blind eye to Khashoggi's killing and describing many other nations' response as artificial and cosmetic. Well, now reports in Turkish media suggest that the CIA has a second recording of a phone call in which the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman gives instructions to his brother Khaled, the Saudi ambassador to the US, to silence Khashoggi as soon as possible. When asked about that yesterday, President Trump said, "I don't want to talk about it. You'll have to ask them." But Turkey is also now coming under the spotlight. Since a coup attempt in 2016, Turkey has arrested at least 319 journalists and arrested 142,000 people who are opposed to the government, making Turkey one of the worst countries in the world for free press. And to put that into context, the simmering relationship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia has been in the background of this whole issue all along. Remember, Turkey, a big supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood. Saudi Arabia considers them a terrorist organization, and that has been one of the background issues that President Trump has had to deal with all along, while in the foreground we've had the Khashoggi issue.
All right. Benjamin Hall, thank you very much. For more on this, let's bring in retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. He is a senior fellow and military expert with Defense Priorities. Thank you very much for talking to us, sir.
Thanks for having me on. Always good to be here.
Great to see you. So when the president said he hated the crime committed here in that tape we just played, it's not really a tape, it's actually all digital now, but I'm old school. He also added the Crown Prince hates it more than I do, and they have vehemently denied it. Do you think Mohammed bin Salman really hates it?
Oh, I have no doubts that he hates the publicity.
But does he hate the crime committed?
No, clearly, I think it's very evident that he does not, because all evidence indicates that he, in fact, either directed it or certainly knew about it. And the evidence is pretty clear on that. And I think that what the United States needs to do, and what I hope the president does, is say, hey, look, we have to deal with autocratic regimes, but we're going to look after the interests of the United States first, and that means our interest as well as our values. And right now, especially when it comes to Saudi Arabia, neither our interests nor our values say that we should support this in any way or just sweep it under the rug. And the biggest, egregious thing of this is not just the Khashoggi issue, but in the Saudi war in Yemen and how they're prosecuting that. And of course, there are millions of people that are suffering in that, and they continue to bomb. That is not in either America's interest or in our values. And I think that that should end immediately, and that will send a signal that we are not just going to allow people to do whatever they want to.
Right. Accountability, no matter whether you're an ally or not. I mean, that should be the American way. The Washington Post reports that President Trump was vague with who he blamed exactly for the killing when he said that maybe the world should be held accountable because the world is a very, very vicious place. Now, the president's statement appeared to indicate that he doesn't wish to take action against the Saudi government in response to the killing of Khashoggi. What kind of action should be taken if action were to happen here?
Well, I go back to the situation in Yemen, because that is a very powerful signal, because we don't want to take action that's actually going to harm America's interest. And I do agree with that, because we have to, just like we deal with Turkey there, as you just mentioned, that, we can't just cut things off every time we don't like something, or we wouldn't be doing business with very many people. But we also have to put very, very clear that there are consequences to actions, and that we're not going to support something that's contrary to our interests and our values. And right now, I think that the best signal we can send both to Saudi Arabia and to others is that we're going to cut off this support to the war that actually harms people and harms our own interest, because we're not going to continue on doing that. I think that's the best signal we can send. The
president has also said that he was not going to destroy the economy of our country, and that's a quote, over Khashoggi, by giving up arms deals to Saudi Arabia. The question is, what message does this put out there on the world stage? Does it send a message that the United States is willing to put economic interests above the country's morals?
If we go down that path, that's exactly the message it's going to suit. And I assure you that autocratic regimes out there will get that message loud and clear. But there's one thing I want to clear up, is this idea that we're almost on the weak side of this and that we need Saudi Arabia. It's the exact opposite. I assure you, without the United States, their planes don't fly, their tanks don't drive, their ships don't sail effectively. They need us far, far more than we need them. And they can't just say, okay, we're going to go and buy $20 billion from China or somebody else, because their systems don't cooperate, so they don't work that way. They need us a lot more, and we can send a signal that we do not accept that kind of behavior. And if they want to be our allies, then they have to bring their behavior into conformity with our values if they want to continue.
Should President Trump meet with the Crown Prince at the G20, you think?
You know, I think that he should to communicate that in person, to say, hey, look, this is not a cost-free relationship here. If it's mutually beneficial, we're going to continue on. But I think he needs to say, hey, I'm the leader of our...
And killed by police. This is the River Chase Galleria just outside Birmingham. Both of the injured are expected to survive.
My house is gone, so I don't have anywhere to go. So I feel pain and I feel anger, and I just really wish that somebody were able to give us a place to go, just to get out of the rain. I pray that that this all works out and we can together form another community and form our town back and get our homes back.
California wildfire victims trying to come to terms with this heartbreaking new reality after the Camp Fire destroyed nearly 14,000 homes in the northern part of the state. This morning, the fire is 95% contained. Rain is helping, but it's also hindering the search for victims, with 84 confirmed dead and hundreds still missing. The fear is this rain could cause landslides and wash away burnt remains. Lieutenant Arwen Rodriguera with the Salvation Army joins us now on the phone. She's the commanding officer for Chico, California, and has been leading the efforts through multiple wildfires in the past year. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us. What kind of assistance are you providing on the ground there?
We have an amazing opportunity to provide spiritual and emotional care and direct assistance, whether that's a hot meal or direct needs. Our goal is to be present with people, meet the direct needs, listen, and hear their stories.
Yeah, I'm sure that the need for spiritual and emotional care is huge right now.
It's absolutely huge. Our people are grieving. A community that's very tight-knit has now been dispersed. And we have this unique opportunity to provide that community, whether that's our distribution center or the other shelters that we're serving hot meals at. We can be present and allow them to grieve and create that space.
And you have trained therapists with you there to do this?
We have been blessed with the opportunity to have over 1,900 trained disaster professionals and volunteers that have been deployed throughout the state, and also specifically to Camp Fire survivors and those who have been impacted.
We've heard a lot about the danger of the rain and the flooding. What are the conditions there today?
It's wet. I'm looking out the window right now, but there's a real strength and resilience in the community of people that are ready to show up and provide services for the most vulnerable.
This is obviously a holiday week, and it's a time where people give thanks. And I'm looking at these images where there are thousands of people who have, it doesn't look like they have anything to be thankful for at this point.
It's a real sobering weekend. Yesterday we had the opportunity to provide a Thanksgiving meal at our distribution center, and we were able to sit down and hear the stories. And it's a huge opportunity when someone comes in and all they need is shoes, and they're able to sit down, get a hot meal, be in a warm room, and just to be near people, to provide that community, to be that guest during this holiday season. And we're going to need to do that now more than ever. We need to be that hope.
I didn't want to say they don't have anything to be thankful for. Obviously, they have their lives, and they have people like you who are there to help out, along with all of these other amazing volunteers. But the forecast there is just bleak in all directions, not just the weather, but the fact that they've lost so much and have so much recovery ahead. So in this time of giving, what can people do to help?
People can partner in being that hope by giving to the Salvation Army's effort at www.salvationarmy.usa.org, or they can call in at 1-800-SAL-ARMY, where they can be that light and that emotional and spiritual care, that physical assistance moment that brings that hope in cold, muddy weather.
Lieutenant Arwen Rodriguera with the Salvation Army, we appreciate your time and your efforts in California. Thank you.
Thank you.
A Fox News alert on the death of an American missionary on a remote Indian island. Arrows killed John Allen Chow last week when he illegally set foot on North Sentinel Island in the Indian Ocean after paddling there on a kayak. A reclusive tribe on the island appears to have killed this 27-year-old. Laws ban outsiders from getting within 5 nautical miles of the island because the tribe, one of the world's most isolated, has a history of forcefully repelling outsiders. India says the law also protects the isolated tribe from disease.
Back to one of our top stories now this morning. House Republicans hitting former FBI Director James Comey and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch with subpoenas, seeking testimony on the 2016 election before Democrats take control of the House in January. Let's bring in Pennsylvania Congressman Matt Cartwright, who's now running for co-chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. He's also a member of the House Oversight Committee. First of all, what do you make of the House GOP subpoenas of James Comey and Loretta Lynch?
Well, first of all, happy Thanksgiving, Julie.
You too.
I hope you're replete with turkey and stuffing. And
yeah.
We sure are all here in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's 19 degrees here in Pittston, Pennsylvania, and we're all bundling up warm and looking forward to opening day of buck season on Monday.
Okay. All right. So what do you make of the subpoena of Lynch and Comey?
Well, look, overall, it is a basic function of the Congress to perform oversight of the administration. Whether they're Democrats in charge of Congress, whether they're Republicans in the White House, it doesn't matter. It's part of the constitutional responsibilities of Congress to serve as a check and balance on whatever's going on in the executive branch, whoever's doing it and whatever party they're in.
Yeah.
So there's no way that I would say that it's improper for oversight to occur. Now, what goes on in those hearings does matter, and I know that I think James Comey has been asking for an open hearing as opposed to a closed-door hearing.
He says he embraces and welcomes
I generally
a hearing
favor
open
those
to the
as well.
public. I mean, first of all, an open hearing, that's not happening. But, you know, as far as the Oversight Committee going forward and doing an investigation, you know, there's also the comparison now that the Democrats are loving to pin between Ivanka Trump and Hillary Clinton. And, you know, there are so many differences between these two, but an investigation should be had so that it's all out in the open. Tell us more about, you know, the investigation that you believe should happen behind Ivanka Trump and whether you believe that there's a similar crime committed here between Hillary and Ivanka. Do you actually think that the two are similar?
Well, you're assuming that Hillary committed a crime, and that is not at all established. In fact, you may remember I was on the Oversight Committee when James Comey was questioned, and one of the key questions was, did she really, any of the emails that she was working with, were they properly labeled classified? And they were not. And actually, it was my questioning that established that. So it could well be that neither of them are in trouble for anything. But I don't oppose people looking into these things at all, because the more facts come out, the more truth is out. You know, truth is the daughter of time, and we have to let it come out.
Right, I know. But also, you know, transparency and truth should be, at least among government officials, trusted. And so, I mean, you know, Hillary Clinton's emails, there were 33,000 of them, but there were, the private server was the main issue here. And that's one of the big differences, aside from the BlackBerry that was smashed and the 33,000 emails deleted in the basement of, you know, basically destroyed classified information. But Hillary Clinton had a private server, you know, Gmail or something of that nature, which Ivanka Trump used, not necessarily the same thing. I want to call for Congressman Jim Himes earlier in our program talking about the comparison between Ivanka and Hillary's emails, and then get your reaction. Let's play that.
I'm not justifying Hillary Clinton's use of a private server. I think that was wrong, just as it was wrong for the president's daughter to do it. The fact is, you had senior government officials going against protocol, and you know, who knows whether those were retained or not. Maybe if there's an investigation into Ivanka's use of emails, we'll discover that the behavior was as similar as it looked.
Here's the thing. I mean, if there is an investigation and you have to turn over the evidence, Ivanka's got the evidence because the emails are still there. Hillary Clinton doesn't because the evidence was destroyed. Do you see a problem there?
I've heard that distinction made, and it may very well be a valid distinction. We're all, you know, all the talking heads are on TV immediately commenting on which way the evidence cuts, well before we've got into any hearings, any testimony, any examination of documents. I think this is all really premature. And I will say this, Julie, it's also typical of what's wrong with Washington. We should be focusing on the things that matter to the American people, things like building American infrastructure. We have crumbling roads and bridges that are not being fixed while people argue over where somebody's keeping their emails. I don't think that's what Americans are focused on. We want to bring down the cost of prescription medications. That's not touched while people argue over emails. We want to do things like improve health care for everybody. Arguing over where people kept emails is keeping us from focusing on what's important to the American people.
I mean, it is important, but there are a lot of other issues on the table as well. I want to get to Nancy Pelosi. She's a shoo-in for House Speaker. I want to read LA Times op-ed written by John Pitney Jr. Get your reaction here. The headline, "Too good to overthrow. Nancy Pelosi, for all the quibbles, is the Democrats' best choice as House Speaker." And I'm quoting, "Thwarted ambition is another source of House Democratic grumbling about Pelosi. She and the two other senior party leaders are in their late 70s, and they've been in power for a long time. Many younger members have been eager to move up in the ranks, but found no room at the top." What's the Democrats' plan when it comes to whoever becomes House Speaker? Most likely it's going to be Nancy Pelosi, and how this runs them up to the election. And is there concern, mostly in battleground states, in having Nancy Pelosi as the House Speaker? Does that help or hurt Democrats when it comes to the presidential election right around the corner?
Julie, I think the concern is that we follow through on our promises. I mean, the things that I just talked to you about, infrastructure, prescription meds, health care, these things only get better if Congress works right, if Congress actually goes through the mechanisms of passing legislation. And that has not been happening. I mean, I've been in Congress for 6 years, and we've seen an ineffective Congress. And it's because we've had a lack of ability to hold caucuses together and to move legislation forward. I mean, we saw that in 2017 with the complete inability to do anything with health care. And it was because you didn't have the kind of leadership to hold caucuses together and gather the votes necessary to move legislation for the American people.
Wait, so let me ask you then.
That's what I'm looking for in leadership, and I think that's where we're going.
The leadership hasn't been there. So now when Democrats take leadership of the House in January, what are they going to do about health care? Are they actually going to make it affordable? Because, I mean, Obamacare, was supposed to be repealed and replaced according to the promises made by Republicans, and they did drop the ball there. What are Democrats going to do when you mention health care to make it affordable? Because people can't afford health care, and that's the bottom line, and that is thanks to Obamacare.
My own view is that we have to continue preservation of protection for people with pre-existing conditions. They're in risk of being thrown off of their health insurance if we keep going down the path we've been following. I think the Democrats are going to put a stop to that. They're going to protect people with pre-existing conditions. We're going to be looking for ways to expand coverage and bring down costs, including the cost of prescription meds.
All right, Congressman Matt Cartwright, thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Same to you, Julie.
Today, 50-year-old Johnny Motto was hiking with his family on a trail called Fat Man's Pass when he slipped into a crevice. His family called rescue crews, who got there in about an hour.
Him being wedged in between those two very large boulders presented its own challenges on how they were going to free him. Luckily, they were able to get him out just with hands and force.
They told me I was probably the only person who ever got wedged in Fat Man Pass, and you could tell I'm really not that fat, right? I'm not that big, say that, please.
The hiker was unhurt and able to walk on his own after the rescue. Wow.
There's some irony there.
Yeah.
Well, Democrats are gearing up for 2020, and it could be the most crowded Democratic primary in history. Take a look at this field of potential White House candidates. More than 24 of them. Let's bring in our political panel. Beverly Hallberg is the president of District Media Group and host of the Filler Words podcast. And Robin Biro is a Democratic strategist. Thanks to you both for being with us.
Thank you.
As many as 30 candidates. So, Robin, let's start with you. Who do you think stands out?
Let's make no mistake, Joe Biden is absolutely at the top of that list, should he decide to run. But he said that he won't make that decision toward the end of the year. The next polling favorite is Bernie Sanders. I've learned not to underestimate him. And then it just goes down from there with Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker, Kamala Harris.
Beverly, do you agree? Are those two the actual front runners this early on?
I want to say front runners, but you're talking about two individuals that I think not only have great name notoriety, but also two individuals that are likable even among young people, which is really surprising considering their age. But Joe Biden, I think, is someone who wanted to get in 2016, but due to the tragic death of his son, decided not to at that point. It would be interesting to see what would have happened if he did. But I do think that one of the names to watch out for is the name we keep hearing, and that is Beto O'Rourke. Here is someone who's young. Here is someone who can raise money. Here's someone who lost a race, but in the process did gain national attention. I think added to the fact that he is very good at communication would serve him well. People have said he's very similar to Barack Obama in being charismatic. And I also think to point out he's someone who's more mainstream Democrat when it comes to his ideology, not leaning socialist. And I think when it comes to the average person, they don't want socialist policies. They want policies that are going to continue to see our economy grow.
Well, this is very speculative because it's early, and most of these people haven't declared yet. Robin, is there an advantage to declaring early?
No, that typically is not advised for strategic reasons. Hillary Clinton herself didn't declare until April, and then Bernie Sanders followed shortly thereafter. But I think that Joe Biden might have an advantage if he does declare, at least, like I said, before the end of the year, because it's going to be a crowded field. And as you know, the loudest voice kind of rises to the top, as we saw with Donald Trump in 2016.
Yeah, it's also not easy to unseat an incumbent like President Trump. Biggest challenge, Beverly, for this field of contenders?
Well, I know the person who President Trump wants the most is Elizabeth Warren. He already said she would be easy to defeat. We'll see if she does decide to throw her hat in the race, especially after what public perceived as an ill strategy to talk about her DNA results. But I think another thing to keep in mind is Tom Steyer. He is someone who has thrown his hat in the race. He's throwing a town hall or having a town hall next week. And it's really going to be the battle of the billionaires between him and Michael Bloomberg. While money matters, these are two individuals that do have far left policies, especially in environmental issues. And that is not what the American people want, especially when there's been job growth under the Trump administration.
The Washington Post published an op-ed by Jennifer Rubin that argues a progressive candidate may not be the right way to go, with a pretty clever headline, driving toward 2020, a pileup in the left lane. Rubin writes, moderate Democrats looking at the 2018 results, where Democrats gained ground in the suburbs and won back states critical to earning an electoral college majority, are understandably nervous that the party will fail to learn the biggest lesson of 2018. Exciting progressives came close.